Hello, decoding community. We are about to dive into a topic that we have been looking at for a while now, the Dunseith debacle. Obviously, this subject has taken over the state in the intrigue surrounding the events that have been happening in Dunseith. I'd like to share a quick word of advisement. In the episode that you're about to listen to and see, there's a lot of information that's going to be shared by Mr. Charles Hoefer, which has been verified by Hoefer Group, their attorney, and in part, other third parties as factual evidence. The decoding has not independently authenticated these materials. The opinions and views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the guests being interviewed and do not necessarily reflect my own views or the views of the decoding. Our goal is to provide a platform for open conversation. Thanks for tuning into this episode, and let's get started. All right. Welcome back to another episode of Indie Talk, where we are covering the Dunseith debacle. We're in episode 3 of this.
Yep.
First episode, general overview, where it tells the whole story. If you have not listened or watched that, go back and watch that because it will help create a foundation where some of this stuff will make sense. Episode 2, we dove into evidence, and we were halfway through, and we hit 2 hours, and we're like, we're tired, and people watching this are probably more tired. So,
and now I'm back.
And Kyler's here this time.
I can be here for the third episode. I'm excited.
He enjoyed episode 2 so much. He's like, I will be there this time.
I had to make it happen this time.
So we're in episode 3. Of course, there's a ton of evidence that's been shown about this 100,000 square foot warehouse facility, manufacturing facility. It can be whatever you want it to be right now. It's a manufacturing facility.
It's a factory.
Yeah.
It's the size of a Walmart, but yeah.
It's huge.
Big for North Dakota.
Yeah. But you're saying in your industry it's small.
In our industry, it would be pretty small. Like there's companies that start up with buildings 5 times this size and beyond for their initial operations.
Yikes.
And so this is your favorite statement that I make. Allegedly, there's been a ton of stuff that's happened in this facility.
There's a lot of alleged things that have gone on that are backed by very credible witnesses and lots of evidence.
Right.
And crime scene reports.
And that's kind of the point of these episodes, is to try to get the alleged label out of some people's minds.
I think so.
Showing evidence of things that have actually happened. And of course, that's for people to decide. So let's jump into episode 3. Maybe it'll be a little bit shorter than the last episode. And as we do, if you want to kind of create a transition between episode 2 and episode 3.
Okay, so I mean, thanks again for having me, Jonathan and Kyler.
Of course.
And good to be in studio. I think basically the main thing is we are an RV manufacturer. We have nothing to do with aerospace industry, things like that. So
your RVs don't fly.
No, maybe we could
someday
work on that. But yeah, so the property was sold to us by state and local government. We were recruited in back in 2022. We started setting up and then basically realized within a few months that there was a bit of a crime syndicate actually running flight sensors and don't know what else, but very sensitive government and commercial tech running through our address, through the town. We didn't have control of our address and mail and started getting threatened over it. And then the cleanup process took almost a year to get partially satisfied. And there's still things that need to be done. And there's an incredible amount of evidence about all of that. It disrupted our business before we could even finish getting set up to millions of dollars and required closing chunks of the site, working with federal agents. And in episode 2, we went through all kinds of evidence about the crime scene and, the real reports of what's actually happened.
Right.
So we were beginning a dive into the public records, and I think maybe we should show more of those records.
Okay.
But I think we should maybe start with a little bit more about that sensor, because we talked a little bit about the GG1320 digital ring laser gyroscope.
And what
showed some information that it's very critical to modern flight. It's used ubiquitously across commercial and government, and we'll just say the word government. It's used all over, and it does things from spacecraft to aircraft to submarines to commercial Aviation and etc. So yeah, it's if we want to jump right in, I mean, it's basically the software level that's coded into the GG1320. We showed that previously, carries a DO 178B level A rating, which is FAA's most safety critical software rating that exists. It's catastrophic, and failure can crash a jet.
So do we want to show that certification?
Yeah, you can show that
All
just
right,
to
let's
show.
put it on.
So this is
Literally
pulled this
just
off of Google.
Yeah, Google's AI's overview of it.
Yep. So the DO178B level A software is critical certification level that represents the highest criticality for avionics system software. Level A is most critical, requiring highest level of testing and scrutiny. A failure at level A is catastrophic, meaning it could prevent a safe landing or continued flight. So yeah, I mean, we can just kind of stop there. And then I pulled up an article that I sent you guys from NASA.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually on their
Sure
website.
Sounds good. Let's get that pulled up. If we had a better tech guy, we'd move faster, but
No
that's
worries.
that's the classic move here at the Dakotan.
But just, looking at those DO 178 categories, you can see that they have a whole list of different levels that it goes to. And
So
clearly, if,
yeah,
like they're saying, with the level A being associated with the GG1320.
with the 1320,
Mm-hmm.
the 1320 running through downtown bars and housing.
Yeah.
By the thousands coming back into Dunseith after 2015, when that facility was supposed to have been closed, of all that work coming back.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, and if so,
Go ahead.
let me know. But there should be a way to figure out where these parts went after they left the facility.
Are you leading me on? It would be wonderful if there was,
At least in
but
theory,
only
there should be.
well, because legally they're all supposed to be traced, but they
Yep.
were sent back, and we're going to show evidence of that today.
Exactly.
They were sent back deliberately without a trace, and so now FAA and government doesn't know where they all went, and a lot of officials in North Dakota were associated with this at state and federal levels, and they also appear to be hiding and basically weaponizing powers of office against our business.
Here we go. We're ready. You want to start
You
on page
ready?
1 or page
Let's
8?
go to page 1. Up, you're on 2.
There we go.
Okay, so this is just, if we can read the title there, Dangers of Failure Masking and Fault-Tolerant Software, Aspects of a Recent In-Flight Upset Event. So this is a NASA Research Center article. They've talked about a Boeing 777 aircraft using what they call an ADARU. If you remember before, we talked about the IRU, the Initial Reference Unit, or the Initial Reference System. The ADARU is the Air Data Initial Reference Unit. And it's just, there's many different derivations of where gyroscopes go in flight control aspects of aerospace. So, if you go down a little bit on that introduction, just basically, where was I there? So then, up just a little bit, sorry. So to illustrate some of the potential dangers associated with fault-tolerant software, we use a case study involving an in-flight mishap on a Boeing 777-200. During the climb after takeoff, the crew observed a low airspeed advisory and a slip skid indication. So what I want to highlight is this one is talking about the same system running gyroscopes, accelerometers, etc. In this particular system, and through this article, they case study faults in accelerometers that had been building in the system for years, and the system wasn't flagging. So to skip all the data, I mean, people can find this article, they can look at it, but if you want to go to the last page,
the conclusions they drew.
Let's just jump right to their conclusion there. So in their conclusion, what they said is, in particular, fault tolerance supports the continued provision of critical services and can be used to extend the interval between maintenance procedures. Fault masking implies that information about the reconfiguration of redundant resources may be hidden from the crew and from maintenance teams during the interval between these procedures. This offers further benefits. Fault masking will reduce the workload of the flight crew by reducing the number of checklists that must be consulted in abnormal situations. Maintenance teams can focus on those areas that require immediate attention. By postponing other items until major service intervals, they can reduce the time pressures that often complicate unscheduled maintenance procedures. However, The benefits of fault masking in redundant systems also create new hazards. When service teams fail to identify underlying failures during major maintenance procedures, aircraft may continue to be operated without the additional, and if you can go up on that page so I can get to the rest there, without the additional assurance provided by redundancy. The potential consequences of this hazard are compounded by the effects of fault masking for operational staff. So what they're basically saying is you can knock chunks of your Adaroo offline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then it can basically, if you go back there, I just want to, so the potential consequences are compounded by the effects of fault masking. They will not be aware of the underlying faults that affect their application when subsequent failures finally compromise the use of redundant systems. Flight crews will be faced with unanticipated problems. The very fact that the initial fault has been masked implies that any secondary failure will also not be covered in training and documentation that usually support their interaction.
Wow.
So imagine you've got systems, lots of gyros, lots of, the one that they're talking about here, if I'm not mistaken, I think that this was a fault-tolerant unit, which is a more expensive version, like much more. I mean, from what I found online, it could be a couple million, where it's got a lot of gyros and accelerometers embedded into a single unit, as opposed to multiple split-out redundancies. So that's why they call it a fault-tolerant single unit. But from, looking at it, let's say your gyro knocks offline, or your accelerometer knocks offline, or different aspects, inputting data into the air data system, other modules get knocked out. The redundancies are still continuing until they're not, or until some unanticipated software disruption occurs within the system that knocks out autopilot or confuses people that are flying the jet. And then the pilots believe they're making corrective actions, but the computer might be misguiding them. And so then they take a wrong action.
Right.
A great example of that. And if you want to click on the Qantas Flight 72,
right here.
right there.
Yep.
So this one is, before anybody says anything, this is Northrop Grumman's flight sensors. But it's an example of an incident that's very easy to find years ago in 2008. Basically, a pair of sudden, uncommanded pitch-down maneuvers. Now, you guys have started to see some of the things I've been showing you about what's been happening with products running GG1320 gyro systems, making sudden, uncommanded pitch-down maneuvers in the last year and a half by the dozens. So when this happened, if you want to scroll down a little, there's a picture that shows what they realized. And there you can see the overhead bins are broken from people's heads in that picture.
Wow.
Going into the ceiling. And they basically had some issues with the inertial reference. And those issues in the system caused the plane to do some sudden characteristics that the pilots weren't expecting.
And since it's on autopilot, the plane, it just kicks into it itself. But the plane
created, I haven't memorized this whole article, but if I'm remembering right, it either threw in incorrect data, or it shut down the autopilot, or it did both at the same time. But what basically happens is then when you have a big jet that's relying on these systems, you can create the impression of turbulence. And when this happens in 2008, a huge review is done, and it's disclosed to the public that, the inertial reference units, where your gyros are also contained, they went bad. We had this incident. We sent a lot of people to the hospital. When it happens this year, it's climate change.
Interesting.
And when it happens over and over.
Right.
So,
interesting.
And by the way, those sensors are running through the Dunseith town.
Gotcha.
And still using our address, which we're going to show the evidence of.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe if we jump into some of that additional evidence.
All right.
Speaking of.
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, speaking of the additional evidence, we can definitely have that to pull up. We can start looking through some of those postage packages you guys received.
I think we should show some of that. I mean, it's
what do you want to pull up here?
Let's pull up the exhibits account numbers redacted.
All right. It's on the way up.
Okay.
Well, let's get it bigger here.
So again, this was a document that the Department of Commerce actually guided our preparation of without telling us that they had associations with the underlying crimes. And this was guided by Jessica Took, who directed me in finding this attorney, and she was the CEO of the Development Fund. And we had a conflicted attorney, which would be a separate topic, who worked in the aerospace industry and then withdrew. And we changed counsel and finished reporting out of state. Why?
Gotcha.
Because in-state agents were still allowing these activities to continue and covering it up on behalf of exactly who we have suspicions of, some of them, but not all of them. So creating an immense trove of crimes piling up against our address, basically. So if we go down, I just want to scroll to picture exhibits here. Keep on going. You'll see photos. There we go. So if you want to scroll so that bar pops up. So this bar is where you will see in a moment sensors in packages coming out of Benchmark Electronics in Minnesota were actually being redirected. And then you can see the distance of the bar to our factory. It's about 6 blocks away, basically. So this is basically connected to a family member of the former sales manager of the site. If you want to go on down, this is the condition of the building when we bought it. Just so
a static facility, right?
Yeah, this was a static facility with completely broken down machines, leaks all over. It had a sewer flood. That section of the building was the former dust-free clean room where they had been doing plasma welding, forklifts, armored vehicles, and currently in 2021 we're using it for Hardware and Housing Authority storage. That photo of the city ambulance right there, we found an apparent nuclear file next to it, and that's where the head office of a lot of the post-2015 activities was discovered to have been located with the records stuffed around.
Gotcha. Yeah, you have arrows pointing to what was discovered.
Arrows pointing to where things were found. These were the conditions of the offices that were told to us as having been shuttered and abandoned by 2018 after failing commercial efforts.
Right.
Definitely doesn't look like it's in the greatest shape, but also doesn't look like it's been abandoned for 7 years at that point by any stretch.
Well, 2018 to 21 would have just been 3 years.
Sure. Sure, at that point.
They were molded
regardless.
out.
Yep.
I mean, there's other photos we have that are just black mold everywhere. So, I mean, there were no evidence of documents after 2018 and no evidence of the flight sensor and the benchmark rework that the public records talk about.
Gotcha.
And we did find a bloody room at the site, which we've talked about. So this photo here where that cage is and you see that table, that's a non-static sensitive area of the facility, and we later discovered that table was covered in solder dust, indicating that they had been doing circuit work at that station. Recently, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we found about 5 tables where once we brought someone formerly affiliated with leading the manufacturing at the old operation in, they started identifying workstations.
Wow.
And that became very concerning. That's just our tear out and gut of 50 offices. We did a big reno through the entire facility. So here is an example of how the packages move around. So again, static sensitive. This is September 2022. We owned the building by April and controlled it by
all summer long.
February.
Yep.
And this was after we started getting threatened by folks like Agent Brejo that we needed to just destroy everything we found and forget we ever saw it, but they were still sending the packages through.
Yeah.
So if you go down a little to see the addresses there, you might need to zoom. Oh, just
you want this address right
those
here.
there. So you might need to zoom in on that a little bit. I'm not sure, but that's
left one can be seen all right.
and then the right one. So up on the left was our address. This was a next day air package, but it was shipped to Chiptronics, which was the dissolved trade name of a legally dissolved company as of 2020. This is 2022 fall.
Okay.
It's being addressed to us at 19 Second Southeast. And then if you go to the bottom right on the packing slip on that package and pull up where I've circled it in orange, that's 10 North Main. That's the Garden Tap bar that we showed.
Wow.
And those devices are labeled static sensitive coming out of Benchmark Rochester, which is publicly disclosed and disclosed in a business plan we showed last time as where the work from this facility for the Honeywell portfolio was moved to for aerospace.
Right. Wow.
So then if you go, there's another one in 2023.
And there's that Rochester.
Oh, the benchmark. Yep.
Just showing that's why it's said to come out of Rochester.
Then here's another example of a package coming in 2023. And you will see there's a benchmark workstation transfer label on the top. Circled again is 10 North Main. Also circled is no value cost item. And package quantity of 30. And that part code 850-000-999, just above your mouse there. Yeah, 850-000-999 is the part code there.
Mm-hmm.
That is a no value cost item. Basically, they're not tracing the movement of these parts back into Dunseith.
Interesting.
It's also a complaint the federal authorities had was they said that there wasn't records at the other aerospace manufacturers they went to of anything coming back, even though it did by the thousands, according to what we found, including public records.
Yeah.
So here again, you can see same address, the Chiptronics build tunnel. Then if you go down, you'll see the 10 North Main on the packing list again. So on this package in 2023, after 2 UPS drivers had already quit, telling us they wouldn't move the packages around town anymore. One driver told us for several years he just went wherever he could find Tuttle with the packages, bar, school, post office. Yeah. And that was told to 2 witnesses.
Wow.
So then another one, if you go down, this one is, again, benchmark receiving at our address.
Nice.
2023. We've had another one of these come in 2024.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they're still even to this. Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah. And I mentioned in the last episode that our house was our address for our industrial site was a White House across town with FedEx until this year. So, yeah, you can see this coming from a supplier being ordered by Benchmark to get into Dunseith. Wow. FAA told us this is a defense issue.
Yeah. Seems like it's definitely an issue.
No one just wants to claim it.
Yeah, pretty much. Keep going down. There's just some interesting exhibits here. If you just scroll on down. Checks. So you'll see this is written in 2022, May. After we bought the facility, and this guy, Bill Tuttle, and his niece, Billy Joe Gladue, were both put on our payrolls. Bill at advice of public officials, Billy Joe at advice of Bill. And he's running, if you want to pull up where you can see the a little higher there, the Chiptronics 19-second southeast on the U.S. bank checks. So they're using our address. They're using a company that doesn't exist, and this is only based on the number of units and based on what we suspect might have been done, a couple hours of work. So we're figuring $200 to $250 an hour of payments. And cover repair is listed, if you want to scroll down just a little so it shows up. What's circled in orange there is cover repair, which again, we've talked about the GG1320 upper cover assembly, contains circuit cards, contains master connectors, etc. And here's 288 units, and Bill charged an admin fee for 588 units.
Nice. You mentioned that Chiptronics didn't exist anymore, and that's because in 2018, I believe that's the last time they filed their annual report with the Secretary
annual
of State.
report, yeah, and then the state dissolved them out through TMC Inc. at the beginning of 2020 in March.
Gotcha.
And they were legally defaulted off the site in 2019, following the abandonment of the site by another tenant.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Want to go through a couple more of these?
A few more, yeah. Just more checks. I'll just say same stuff. If you keep going down, source inspector for the Honeywell portfolio was being paid all the way through 2019. Found tens of thousands of dollars of payments that went to IRS crimes and others. So basically, that source inspector is also local, was source inspecting the Rochester portfolio and also being paid through Chiptronics. Okay. So I'd rather not speculate anything further than that, except to say that the Rochester portfolio source inspector, after site closure until 2019, was also being supported through Chiptronics, and Chiptronics was receiving lots of parts back to a facility that had no compliance whatsoever.
Interesting.
Going down, just keep on going through. There's a couple of items I may want to pull up yet. Keep on going.
Some invoices there and things.
Yeah, so this here is a box of a little over 1,000 records that showed invoices of how they did it. It included payrolls. It included all sorts of transactions, shipment logs, tracking numbers, etc. This was when Brejo threatened me, was when we found all these actual UPS worldwide shipper report logs, and that's what those are, showing the transactions of the covers and showing transactions to Lockheed and Benchmark over several years.
A plethora of activity still being shipped out of there in that time.
Keep on going. Records showed hundreds of thousands of dollars to millions of dollars in irregularities. I mean, when Chiptronics declared itself to have no assets, it looked like they were holding a couple $100,000 cash pile in a separate record on the same date of their default. So, yeah.
China sales.
Yeah, China sales here. This one is, we talk about the China sales record.
Mm-hmm.
It actually had a FedEx account number sticky noted to it. It was copied a number of times over, and it just says China sales at the top left with a 1-year report. The numbers are probably made up, but the China sales probably not. There's a CD example of all the burned CDs we would find. This one has a warning of an Arms Export Control Act label on it. A lot of discs we found stuffed in bags around the site during cleanout, all relating to the past operation.
Sure.
We found burned CDs even in like Microsoft Windows cases that would show site archives.
Wow.
So just some of the small bits of evidence. I mean, a fraction of it there. This one's interesting because it shows a $200,000 blanket miscellaneous, or called an interco transfer for reimbursement to Thailand for $200,000.
Nice.
Back in the 2000s. The IRS took a lot of stuff off the site related to all kinds of interesting financial transactions.
No, real fast with those. This is more of just a related point seeing this.
Yeah.
So if you were getting mail like this where it's just an envelope and it says Chiptronics on it, that's one thing. But you were getting full-blown packages being sent to your facility.
Well, the drivers told us they were actually dropping them elsewhere, but they were using our address.
Yeah.
And the post office told us that they were sifting our mail out every week and giving what belongs to TMC and Chiptronics to them. Mm-hmm. And if we don't like the arrangement, they'll just send all our Hoefer group mail back to sender.
Wow.
And my production manager was involved in that meeting with the post office on that as well.
Sure.
Gotcha. Just
that was all
fire
the point
on
I had
through.
with that, yeah.
So this was interesting on this one here, 2014. I'm not sure how you get to negative 7.2 million non-inventory material.
Wow.
It's down a little, right there. And that number was growing by the millions over the years from records we saw on the site of negative inventory material. Mm-hmm. And that's right before site closure. Keep in mind, Chiptronics would collect the funds and then send back to Benchmark. And there were records and emails on the site from the site's operators questioning where missing inventory is, things like that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And then that gets us...
Chiptronics, I know we covered this before, but they were simply the distributor.
5-employee sales distributor getting minority contracts to the site, and then the real 120 to 200 person operation was Benchmark, previously PEMSTAR, and then another predecessor before that until about 2000.
Gotcha.
So, you can go on down. And then that's just another shot of the 1320 off the internet, just for people to see it. This one's interesting. Again, we blacked out the 1320 coding, but no ban transactions necessary.
Right.
Now, ban is the audit ledger that was tracing aerospace parts for Benchmark. Okay. And this originated on parcels that were coming out of Minnesota. And this says epoxy removal on covers. Okay, interesting, right? And then if you go down a little bit, you can see Bill Tuttle, Chiptronics. Now, right there where the, these are covers with greater than 2 sides epoxy, chip to clean if possible. It's a non-existent instruction.
Okay. It doesn't mean anything.
There's not greater than 2 sides epoxy.
Okay.
So, So this is getting parts out of a building and getting them into North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
And there were numerous instructions that would just say things like cleaning. And
this is so whoever's packing it and shipping this doesn't ask any questions themselves.
Gets it out the building and gets it out of state and gets it from Minnesota to North Dakota. and does so without a trace. So I think that takes us pretty close. Maybe see. Yep, go down. There's one more email I want to show you if you just keep going a little. Yep. So like here is a benchmark purchaser, Mike Stack from Minnesota, who doesn't even know that this site still exists because he accidentally sent something there. And if you scroll down a little, you can see Tuttle signed for it in Dunseith, and he's needing to get parts back into Minnesota urgently.
Nice.
There's a trace of emails that were printed off at the site that showed that within hours, Mike found Bill and was able to get his product back into Minnesota. But, you know, so you have a purchaser for Benchmark who believes that Benchmark Dunseith is done,
Right,
and
right.
that the whole site's closed and there's no access to aerospace anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So I don't know that the information was widely distributed. We've found roughly a dozen names between North Dakota and Minnesota from records connected to everything.
Wow.
So yeah, we can jump off of this one.
All right, we'll close out a bit.
And then let's just show serial number logs. I think that's interesting. So again, we're redacting some stuff here, but this is 2020. This one is January. The logs go all the way into 2021, I believe, that we found on the site. And then we've traced, you know, shipments and photographs into 2023, and we played some recordings of Benchmark's lead outside counsel acknowledging that they were unaware that Tuttle didn't have our address anymore, and they were sending 1320 parts back.
Yeah.
So by these serial numbers, it's easy to trace when these things were manufactured.
Okay.
And initially people said, oh no, we were just sending, you know, old stuff back for a little bit of refurbishment and some epoxy cleaning. But the numbers are actually current production run stuff.
Right.
And there's about 1,600 serial numbers that we've traced
Wow.
in going through things. So if you go, you can see, you know, worker logs, they've signed these. I don't know if you're able to pull that up on the,
Yep.
yeah. So it's all signed, hours and everything.
Right.
And then some of those same names were continuing on checks that we found at the site after we bought the place.
Wow.
And we did discover that our security system was completely tampered and hacked, and you could get through 70% of our building undetected.
Even when it was
and
armed.
3 exterior doors. Yeah, when it was armed and when the apps would say that everything is live.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then let's do Exhibit 2. There's just a couple of interesting things there. If you want to go up, we don't need to go down to the photo.
Okay.
Yeah, go down that second page, third page. Yep.
Okay.
So right here,
Let's get pulled up here.
just go down to the potato soup recipe there.
Yeah.
So there you're going to fry ham with onions, drain, cut potatoes, and then get an order for 60 ANs and 30 AFs, which GG1320AN and GG1320AF, and a total of 270 units. So I'm not sure what else came in on that call.
Have you tried the recipe?
Feels a little lacking.
It looks a little watery at this point. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we should add some spice.
Yeah.
Salt, a little salt at least,
So,
right?
Yeah. Oh, thank you for keeping it light today. It's heavy evidence. So going down.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, here's another example of a packing list. And this was, I believe, 2017. I can't read the text there. It's a little too small. But again, covers to Dunseith for cleaning. And it's a no-value cost item. And if you go up just a little bit, a quantity of 1, but it's 19 pounds. So
What one?
covers, plural, quantity 1, no value cost item. There's that 850-000-999 code again that we saw in 2023.
Yep.
Right.
And 19 pounds, and the complete sensor barely weighs over a pound or something. So, I mean, it's...
Something doesn't quite add up there.
If it's small parts, I mean, this could be anywhere from, 2 dozen to, 50 plus. It's hard to know.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So that's...
I
we can
can't find a
stop there.
date on it, but
Oh, it's 2017-01, right up above the orange circle.
gotcha. Yep, there you go.
Right
Ship
there.
day.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay.
Wow.
So we can end on those.
Close this document.
Yep.
There we
Yeah.
go.
So then, I think maybe just show a few public records. And basically, let's just say for time's sake, we're just going to be cognizant of the fact that we could be showing tons and tons of stuff. But
And there is much more.
There's much more.
Yep.
But let's just jump to like public record 10. I mean, so again, if we go...
We're at the bottom right now. Where do you want to go?
We can just slowly scroll up till we see the can work. I just want to note that all these records keep on going. It'll a little further. Yep.
We'll jump out to us.
There we go. So yeah, there's one Lockheed, shipped 218 pieces, invoice paid in full, potential for another 182. Rework cans increasing over 500. Additional rework opportunity, waiting for on-site review, etc.
And so again, just I know you guys had some of these.
You can go to the top to show who's in the meeting.
These are
If you zoom in, go ahead.
Yeah, just meeting notes from meetings that happened.
Public officials managing and providing money into the site, including representatives for Senator Hoeven and Kramer.
Yep.
Executive Director for Indian Affairs for the state of North Dakota. And as you can tell in these meetings, we've redacted a few people who are cooperating witnesses, and the rest of the folks, for the most part, are state and federal officials. You've got acting head of USDA as well for the state.
Wow.
So maybe we jump on, I think it's just more records basically, but let's show the default. Sure. Just to show that they did default this project in 2019 and it should have stopped. So,
right here?
Yeah.
And absolute worst case at the absolute latest, 2019 should have been the last time anything.
Well, I mean, at that point,
last time any business took place there at that stage.
It's shocking that any aerospace and defense took place anyway, because they had already removed the environmental controls, all the qualifications. We shared a record.
Any licenses or certifications would have lapsed at that stage.
And they were using Chiptronics as a registered sales entity with the DoD. They hadn't even changed it to from a non-manufacturer to a manufacturer.
Sure.
So it's hard to understand what the thought process was for any of this, and the potential false claims liabilities, like we've showed other cases.
Right.
Can be huge, both prison time and tens of millions of dollars in fines.
Yeah.
So if you just scroll down to the meeting again, this is just basically a default and giving equipment back, which was on a lease to own. And there's, let's see, do another document.
You want to go to the next one?
Let's change this document. There's another one from that date.
Let's see.
Let's see, it would be probably August 2019 benchwork.pdf. Yeah, so this is August. So if you scroll to the top, I think the date will be on this report.
Okay.
8/29/19. It's the same date of that letter for the default.
Right.
Sure.
So bench, no update, rework cans, 360 last month.
Wow.
Then the Armored Vehicle Company is also listed here, and I'd rather not go into the name of it now, but we talked a little bit about the fact that there was a company that was there and then just disappeared, but prepaid their way into the site.
Yeah.
One of these public records notes that they were prepaid. And if you X out of this one, I'll pull that one up really quick.
Okay.
So go to the layman email April 22. Okay.
Wait a minute. We'll make it a little bit bigger for our eyes.
Oh, that's not the one. There's another one. But yeah, so this, you can see the officials are still, Dave Lehman, who structured our incentives into the state and loans and helped broker the building, was still a part of this right before the default a few months.
Okay.
What we've noticed is something happened in 2019 between May and June. There was a conflicting defense registration triggered at the site by the armored group.
Okay.
And they were gone within a month and never seen from again. There was a bloody room left at the site that was covered under boxes.
Wow.
We found personal possessions, and we learned that a couple $100,000 military vehicle had been auctioned into the tribe for less than, I think, $10,000. And there's court records and paperwork about all of that. But they waited a year to default them because they were actually prepaid to the end of 2019.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
And they had an option to
couldn't
purchase. They couldn't default them until they accrued enough debt. So they waited till around May of 2020 to actually retake possession of the assets, and then started introducing the facility to me around January or February of 2021.
Crazy.
So some people that had been in the meetings didn't even know that the armored group was gone until they met me.
Wow.
Jeepers.
So I don't know what happened, but something happened, and we've been tracing people and trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
So maybe just show some of the flight incidents
Okay.
that go through.
Some of these right here.
No, let's. I think there's a folder with links.
Okay.
Sorry to make you do all the extra.
Oh no, you're good.
He's the production man himself. He runs the show.
This stuff right here is what you're thinking of.
I think so. Let's do the LATAM Airlines one. Scroll down a little bit. Yeah, the FAA requires inspection of Boeing 787 pilot seats.
This one?
Yep. And then we can open all the other links as well. But
yep.
So here's why this one's interesting.
Yeah, let's get this shown on screen for everybody.
Of course.
Excellent.
Pulling up on good old CBS.
Okay.
There we go.
This was August 20, 2024.
A couple months ago.
So they've acknowledged that there's been 5 mid-air dives.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, we looked at Qantas flight mid-air dives.
Right.
Inertial reference units causing failures in autopilot because of cascading faults, which NASA says is an issue in building these fault-tolerant redundant systems because it allows for maintenance to be deferred and your critical systems can still fly. But then if more things go out, you start to run out of your redundancies. And so what can happen is your system can accidentally select an already faulted unit to run data through. And yes, someone might say, well, some of the newest jets are running these hybrid GPS systems. They are, but they're still using gyro data and other things into the systems.
Gotcha.
Our only point is it's crazy when you have bushings that were sold through AOG Technics in the last episode that couldn't be traced. And the FAA alerted everybody to that. And now you have gyro sensors with a catastrophic software component that can't be traced. And you have jets taking mid-air dives by the dozens. And there's no safety bulletin. And CNN runs a report that says this might be climate change.
Right, yeah.
There's not a lot of asking of why it's happening, more just saying it's happening and it could be climate change.
So what happened was LATAM Airlines was the first and only group that said, no, this dive was a technical issue, it wasn't turbulence. None of the other airlines have independently come out.
Interesting.
And said that to a specific incident. Now there's pilots unions and things that are starting to say, hey, we're having way too many safety and maintenance issues with our jets.
Yeah.
But no one is saying this, alleged turbulence was mechanical or technical. So LATAM said it was technical. 50 people got injured because of a technical fault. FAA said, okay, it was technical. They waited a while. And then just a few months ago put out a bulletin and said, hey, we need to start checking some jets. And
that's what this article is.
This article is about this button that somehow a hostess can trip into in the back of a pilot's seat after breaking off the cover, covering the button. And then the button which moves the pilot's seat very slowly forward, and the pilot's seat stops before he gets anywhere near his yoke stick and stuff. Somehow, if the pilot's really obese and has a lunch tray on his belly, he could smash into the controls and then disengage autopilot, and the plane could drop. There's been Boeing pilots on YouTube who've rubbished this allegation.
That kind of claim.
Gotcha.
They're saying there is a technical issue, but it's not the button on the back of the seat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Wow. Is there anything else you want to go through on this article?
No, that's fine. I think maybe just note Singapore Airlines. And that one actually had a passenger die. There's been a couple hundred injuries and hospitalizations from these free falls in the air. And there's been a lot of low-fly incidents and a lot of sudden course changes. So if you go to 1 dead and 71 injured in the middle there, and I think we can end on that one as far as different evidence goes. But yeah, so here, this was a flight again. The interiors of these jets just look like carnage. I don't know if this one has a picture on it or not, but this was a 777 Boeing, which I believe the NASA article we talked about was reviewing 777s for their ADARU units. And so, yeah, I mean, things just falling off the ceilings and coming down, and there were
mess.
There's a lot of photos you can get online of bloodied cockpit or bloodied cabins, and you can see broken seats in other flight crashes. There's one photo floating around online in one of the articles we won't get to today, but where somebody actually went in and through the overhead bin, and their feet were actually hanging out where luggage should have been.
Jeepers. That's
So
that just tells you the force that they're being jolted with. It's that
crazy
kind of alleged turbulence.
And there were 2 incidents last week.
Wow.
So one that rerouted a jet, and I think it might have been running a different manufacturer's product. But the point is, these are really sensitive components, and sets of flight control software, where historically years ago, and you can even go look at the ADIRU, Air Data Inertial Reference Unit, like stuff, I mean, even online, and you can see other incidents from the 2000s and things where, they're disclosing that, okay, the jet did something crazy, and it happened because of the system.
Wow.
And so now you're just having cascades, one after another.
Mm-hmm.
And, we hope that there's not still things going back into Dunseith. But the craziest thing about it is in the third collection, when the government came, they haven't confirmed it, and we still have had issues with our address.
Okay.
So
you never know.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing I want to say is, like, I hear so many people talk about in the state, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who are trying to give a sympathetic ear to, well, maybe in the way they handled our business, or tried to extort us through the way they manipulated our loans, or tried to retake our facility from us, which is other documentation that we have, using backdated security instruments, which would be illegal. Maybe there's another side.
Yeah.
Right? But what's the other side to the evidence itself? I mean, you can explore nuances of why or who did it, but it's like if you walk into a building and you find a murder victim, you're not going to be saying one side says there's a murder victim and the other side says, no, there's not a murder victim. And that's why the state can't address these issues. They had people participating. Addressing it is self-incriminating.
Yeah.
And it puts us in this pickle where they're completely conflicted, and have been since we began discovering the crimes. They tried to cover it up, and they tried to get us to throw it all away in different ways through different groups, including through the Attorney General's office and BCI. Tried to get us to sign non-disclosure agreements where, we wouldn't be able to talk about any relationship with any state entity, and we couldn't be having this discussion today. We refused all that. And so then the question becomes, why will no one, why is Attorney General Wrigley getting agitated when people are trying to ask him questions about Dunseith? Why is Senator Kramer getting agitated and somehow trying to allege that he's a victim in all this, when things happened 2 months ago that were just outrageous, that I was standing against and saying absolutely not. And I begged Kramer's team for help last year, and he says, I don't want to help. He won't come and meet with me. He won't visit the site. And you've got murder connected through Brejo, who threatened me and tried to make me throw away the evidence, who's a federal agent, who has a site full of federal crimes, and a community running a federal crime ring, not the whole community, but certain people.
Sure.
How do you reconcile all of that? And why would these officials not want to rush to help? I mean, one point I will make is, well, his team's names are on the records.
Yeah.
And those are real records that have been authenticated by participants in those meetings.
Right.
And now there's crime scene reports and investigations. And then our business has been hamstrung for 2 years because each time we've been trying to bring outside finance in, Commerce publicly tells a nice story and then tries to sabotage us in the background where the public can't see it.
Yeah.
And so that's been a very frustrating position, and one we hope to move past soon.
Sounds like you're trying to segue to another episode.
I don't know. We do have some pretty interesting cover-up evidence.
Yeah. We might have to get together one more time then.
Okay, that'll be all right with me.
All right, sounds good. So this has been an interesting dive into more evidence of, and it really, we've said, I think in the first episode, that there's really 2 stories here. There's one of what happened at the site, and then there's the second of what has happened on to you in your interactions
as
with
we tried to
state.
fix it.
Yeah.
And we desperately tried to fix it, and we've always tried to do it above board and in accordance with law. And that seems to be infuriating people, because if the law is followed, then other prominent people are implicated.
Right. So I think we have pretty well told the first part of the story, the first story,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what's happened at the site. There's evidence that you've shown and stuff like that, so people can watch back to the episodes and get a full understanding of that. And that next episode would then begin to talk about the potential cover-up and stuff that has gone on.
Yeah, appreciate it, gentlemen.
It's been
Absolutely.
fantastic.
Thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
And thank you to the Dakotan community for watching this episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Join our community. We do Indie Talk live every Thursday morning at 8 p.m.
8 a.m.
At 8 a.m.
It's
in the morning. Yeah, every morning at 8 p.m. Right. I have very late mornings. Every morning at 8 a.m. We'd love if you joined us for those. Thanks for watching this episode, and have a great day. Dakotan community, thank you for watching this episode number 3 in the Dunseith debacle. We're going to continue to produce a couple more of these podcasts. We're not sure exactly the number. I hope you enjoyed this one. If this is the first one you watched, I encourage you to go back and watch episode 1 and 2, as it will shed a little more light on the whole storyline that has been presented by Mr. Hoefer. I'd like to share a quick word of advisement. In the episode that you just listened to and saw, there was a lot of information that was shared by Mr. Charles Hoefer, which has been verified by Hoefer Group, their attorney, and in part other third parties as factual evidence. The Dakotan has not independently authenticated these materials. The opinions and views expressed in this podcast were those of the guests being interviewed and do not necessarily reflect my own views or the views of the Dakotan. Our goal is to provide a platform for open conversation. Thanks for watching this episode. I encourage you to like and subscribe on YouTube, become part of the Dakotan community so we can continue to bring this interesting content for North Dakota. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.